all this, or did the Soviet Union come looking for outside suppliers?
A combination of two things, Charlie. We've been engaged in business with the Soviet Union for over 20 years. When we heard of the shortages in the Soviet Union, we instigated discussions with the Soviet government and the Russian Republic. And about 2 weeks after that, they actually sought effectively a tender from all tobacco companies around the world. So it was a combination of both.
How'd they get themselves so short?
I think as a consequence of raw material supplies, they've always been a net importer of cigarettes, large imports from Bulgaria. Bulgaria's had a bad tobacco crop, so as a consequence of shortage of raw materials, shortage of traditional imports, they've got themselves into this situation.
Is this your biggest single deal ever?
It's the largest single individual export order. Obviously, we export more cigarettes to our big markets of West Germany, of Italy, Japan, Turkey, and France. But in terms of a single order, yes, it's the biggest export contract Philip Morris has ever engaged in.
What percentage of your export market will be represented by the Soviet Union?
Well, the Philip Morris total business is about 580 billion. Our total international business is about 360 billion. This represents about 20 billion units, so it's about 5% of our total international business. Let's, Dr. John Safran says to be one of the only people that seems to be upset with this sale. Firstly, the Soviet government is very pleased to have their crisis solved. Secondly, the Russian people are very pleased for the first time in their life to have a choice of cigarettes that they can buy. Choice is a very important part of the newfound democracy and freedom that the Soviet Union is now seeing. That the US government should be very pleased because we'll be increasing our trade, as a consequence decreasing the trade balance. I think they should also be very pleased because this will help cement the relationship between the United States government and the Soviet government in this very important time. And thirdly, obviously, we're very proud that the tobacco farmers will benefit from this. The US exports today generate over 250,000 jobs to the United States. They generated over $5 billion in exports to the US economy, so it's very, very positive for the economy.
This is John Kachiver, reporting from Moscow, where it's possible to buy Philip Morris products. The most popular, of course, is Marlboro, the largest selling foreign cigarette in the Soviet Union. Moscow truly is Marlboro country. Cigarettes are in particularly short supply. There was panic buying last summer that led to rationing. To help relieve the shortage of Soviet cigarettes, the government ordered 22 billion Marlboros to be delivered before the end of 1991. It is the largest export order ever for Philip Morris cigarettes.
I think it's very important for Philip Morris because it will represent a 5% market share in a new market for us, basically, because we have not been supplying large quantities of cigarettes to that market. So from that point of view, and building the future is obviously the most important part in this business.
In the future, cigarettes may be just one of the many Philip Morris products available to Soviet consumers.
Malaysia. TV advertising of tobacco is banned here, as it is in Hong Kong. But this is not. It's an advertisement for a concept, Salem High Country.
You knew you were doing a cigarette, but at the time I didn't really know what it was for. You're just smiling and pointing at things. I thought, what does high country mean? It's Salem High Country.
Salem High Country, a world of refreshment.
I did the first ad, and that played a lot on TV. It was on every 20 minutes or something. And everybody started talking about it because it was played so much and it was a new concept. And after that, a lot of other cigarette commercials started, things that were similar campaigns, but maybe for travel or for clothing, things like that, but still advertising cigarettes.
By developing alternative products with the same logo, tobacco companies can keep cigarette names in the public eye.
Lucky Strike biking gear. Go with the spirit. Go with Lucky Strike. Quality.
It's known as brand stretching.
This is Dunhill. Alamila, Detek Keriangan, Winston's. Get on board the Music Express and rock around the clock with the Salem Celebration.
A list of 7 groups were targeted for lobbying. Members of Parliament from the ruling and opposition parties were approached, particularly powerful and influential parliamentarians. The bureaucracy, ministers for finance, health, industries, foreign affairs and law. The acting president, the prime minister and leader of the opposition were not directly approached, all being non-smokers, the last 2 women, for whom smoking is still socially unacceptable in Bangladesh. The intelligentsia and opinion leaders, many of whom have been major beneficiaries of BTC's patronage of art, culture and philanthropic activities, and who mould public opinion. Sports organizers who have considerable social influence, newspaper owners who mould public opinion, the press, vanguards of the right to freedom of expression. The advertising agencies were told, today it's the tobacco industry, tomorrow others would be targeted. Once the targets had been identified and listed, managers were assigned individually and in groups. This included everyone from the chairman right down to the junior-most secretary. The emphasis was on direct contact with as many target publics as possible. With the help of BAT and the International Advertising Association, 4 booklets were printed and widely distributed. Tobacco advertising, 5 arguments against censorship. Once again, we lobbied with the opposition leaders. Once again, we were successful. The battle had been won. We cannot be complacent. Pressure from WHO and Adhunik has forced the government to mount massive radio and TV campaigns against smoking. Anything can happen anytime. The war continues.
But in this essentially agricultural country, BAT Kenya has worked hard to improve farming methods. And this has meant higher standards of living for rural Kenyans. At its Malakisi Center near Lake Victoria, the company recruits and trains people to act as advisors to the many small-scale tobacco farmers in the region. These advisors visit the farmers on a regular basis, providing counsel on how to improve the quality of their crops. The tobacco farmers who supply BAT Kenya must now undertake to plant 1,000 trees for every acre of tobacco, as well as growing their own food crops. One such farmer in the Kuria region of South Nyanza is also a minister in the Kenyan government, Mr. Mwita.
Well, until BAT came into existence, our main cash crop was only coffee, supplemented by growing of maize, millet, etc. But since the BAT came in, I think it has overtaken all other cash crops in terms of what goes into the pocket of the farmer.
In the tobacco growing areas of the country, BAT Kenya has established a number of centres like this one in Meru. To these centres, local farmers bring the fruits of their harvest, in the certain knowledge that they will be paid on the spot.
We are not, through advertising, trying to encourage people to take up smoking. That is an individual choice for each adult in the society, and advertising has no influence on that individual adult decision.